the Home Pros Radio Show.
I'm Tommy Donovan with RIC Home Inspections, and this is another episode of the Home Pros Radio Show podcast. Recently on our show, we discussed the basics of plumbing supply in our homes with Scott Smith with All Clear Plumbing. In this conversation, which you can catch in episodes 17 and 20 of our podcast series, one topic we did not touch on was freezing plumbing lines, which, as you can imagine, is a popular topic with our callers during the winter months. Where do our pipes tend to freeze, and what causes them to do so? Also, what's the best way to tackle this issue when we discover it in our homes? Scott Smith joins us again on the phone for the answers to these questions. We begin our discussion first with a quick look at freezing conditions outside our home and our RIC Home Inspections photo from the field.
Let's get into our RIC Home Inspections.
What are you looking at? I know what I'm doing.
Did you see that? So check out those photos. It's interesting. These are photos that I took actually out on homes this week, because that doesn't last very long. But the point in taking those photos is for people to see and think, hey, you know what? The coolest thing about anytime we have freezing temperatures, we have snowy conditions or anything like this, the cool thing about it is what these conditions essentially do is they slow the process of water shedding off of our home. So by watching the way ice freezes and watching the patterns in which all of this happens, we can get an idea of how efficient our house is with getting rid of water. Remember a few weeks ago we were talking about ice dams?
Yes.
Well, there's an ice dam for you right there on the gutters.
Yeah.
So, that can typically be an indication that maybe your gutters aren't draining adequately.
I would say so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you see them flowing over like that, you might have some issues.
Yeah, absolutely. How about that downspout at the top of the photo?
The gutters are working correctly.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's water's coming out of it.
That's good. That's what you want. So, that's a perfect indication. Normally, in order to tell if gutters are working properly, what do you got to do? You got to walk out in the rain. Well, in a case like this, you can go out on a sunny day and just look up.
The glass is always full or half full. Even the nasty weather, we're finding something good to do with it.
The other thing that's nice is this is also an opportunity where you can actually watch your gutter system drain without having to stand in the rain. And a lot of times, like when I'm doing inspections, I'll feel a drop or I'll see a drop from a gutter system, and of course it's raining, and I'm like, well, is that water hitting the front of the gutter and dripping off, or is it actually leaking?
Right.
Well, in this particular house I was at this week, you could see the leaks, the water dripping out of the joints, so you knew that the gutter system is leaking. So as a homeowner, just take a few moments at a time like this to just kind of walk around and just see how things like this, as that process of water draining off your house slows, you can get a good idea of how efficient your home is with shedding that water. We'll get to that third picture. It's kind of funny, but we'll get to that. But first, we have Scott from All Clear Plumbing. Scott Smith, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. Speaking of freezing water, I bet you're getting a whole bunch of calls these days about what, pipes?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Well, go ahead.
The worst thing we see is, hose bibs freezing because people leave their hose hooked up. They just forget about it out on the outside of the house, and the hose is full of water, and then that ice travels back in and breaks the pipes and creates a mess.
Mm-hmm. And Scott, that's kind of tied into the photo that I was just mentioning. Is I have a picture. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a photo of a hose bib on the back of a home. The handle was missing. So what they have is one of these little gate valves, those little that you operate with like your two fingers and a thumb on the edge of the nozzle. And I swear to goodness, I think this is what happened. Mom and Dad tell the son, go out there and just, open up the valve so it drips. Well, that kind of valve doesn't do that. It sprays. So he did what Mom and Dad told him to. So it's spraying water, but it's spraying it out on a wood deck. And it's actually essentially, because of the way that it's spraying, is forming an ice sculpture. It's pretty cool, but not good to have outside your house.
Yeah, we've seen the winter wonderland from spraying water like that. it's nice to look at, but it's not a good thing for it to happen.
Not around your house, definitely. Well, what are some of the most vulnerable areas in the home that you would say homeowners need to be aware of?
The outside walls. I mean, the number one thing is like, you know, bathroom walls, bathrooms that are on an outside wall, kitchens. Those hose bibs are the most vulnerable. And, you know, even the folks that have, you know, quote unquote frost-free faucets, you know, they're defeated by having a hose hooked to it with that water in there. And that's the number one. We replace dozens of them every winter because that's the thing that happens. If people would drip the hot and cold water during these, you know, super cold events.
So that's interesting. You want to make sure you drip the hot too.
Yes, because hot water will actually freeze faster because of physics. It's just the molecules are spread out and ice crystals can form quicker.
Interesting. So hot water freezes faster. What do you think about that, studio audience? Yeah, exactly. It's pretty amazing. I would have never guessed that. I find that interesting.
I'd always heard it, but I never really understand it. So, I mean, I'm glad you explained that a little bit there, Scott, about it as far as the molecules. But, yeah, I'm going to have to do some research on that just to figure out exactly how that works. But that is interesting.
So how does it work? Well, how does it freeze sooner?
You can take a cup of hot water and cold water and put it in the freezer, and you check it later, and the water that was heated will freeze in there. And because what people don't understand is that water that's in the lines, you know, where you have to wait until you get the really hot water from your faucet when you turn it on, that water cools down. And since it was heated, the water particles in there can freeze faster. And that's it's not that, you know, okay, I've got boiling water, I'm going to put boiling water because you've still got the heat to it. That water actually cools off, but since it was warmer, it actually forms ice crystals faster.
That sounds to me, you know what that sounds to me like?
What's that?
A really good science project.
Oh, yeah.
For any of the kids out there listening. I think that, yeah.
If there's any kids out there listening to us this morning, go ahead and do that one this year.
Well, you know, the kids that are listening to us are so smart. They probably already know this.
Good point. Good point.
Exactly. So, but, so areas that homeowners need to be aware of: outside walls, anytime we have exterior walls where plumbing lines are present, bathrooms and such that are around the outside. What about, and hose bibs? You mentioned hose bibs, which nowadays homes are equipped with shutoffs, like in sink vanities and such, where you can shut off the water and bleed those lines if the homeowner remembers to do it. So I guess that's an advantage. What about water lines that are in a crawl space, for example? Is that something we need to be worried about?
Not a lot about, but the best thing to do is most modern houses that still have vents, they have a vent that'll actually close when it gets colder. They have a little bimetal spring that'll actually close them. But if your house is built in the 60s and they have the vents, it is a good idea to go around and close those vents. They'll have a little tab, and if that flap is missing, to put something over it. They sell little magnets that'll actually stick to them and different things, but in a lot of houses, they'll have like an aqua hut where the water heater's outside in a little metal structure. Making sure that the pipes are insulated properly, where, you know, there's not a gap where you have exposed pipes. We've had that where the pipes freeze and then it freezes back into the home, and that can cause problems. And if your house does freeze, the best thing to do is actually open all the faucets, turn off the water. The first thing everyone should know how to do is turn off the water to their house.
Okay.
By them either having a valve that they can turn, or go out to the meter and having a T-bar. All the home improvement stores sell them, and doing when the weather's nice, doing a trial run and see, because sometimes those are difficult to turn. But have that, because in an emergency, you're out there trying to struggle with a pair of pliers, and it's not a fun thing.
No, so you're saying if you do have frozen pipes, they need to shut down the water and open all the valves. So I guess whenever it thaws out, they actually it just drains out at that point in time rather than busting the pipes.
Open all the cabinet doors and turn the heat up in the house, and just wait for it to thaw, and that way you can control turning on the water to see if you do have any leaks in the house, because it's heartbreaking going to someone's home and it's like, I left this morning and my house was frozen and I went to work, and then the living room ceiling is on the floor and their house is flooded.
Yeah, and they always, and I even mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, because after it freezes, that's not usually when they find all this stuff. They find it once it warms up a little bit, once it gets right above freezing, that's when their ceiling's laying in the floor and all that good stuff. So yeah, but I definitely like the information you gave as far as opening the valves and shutting the water off, just so you don't have all those busted pipes.
Well, the important thing to remember too, Scott, would you agree that when the pipes do burst, it's when everything's thawing, not necessarily when it's frozen, and folks don't realize that. Yeah. We've got a special guest on line one, Scott Smith from All Clear Plumbing. We're talking about freezing pipes, and we're talking about the process that we need to go to. If we come home and we find frozen pipes, really, the first thing we need to remember is don't panic, I guess, because if something's going to leak, it's not now because everything's frozen, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So we need to go through the proper steps to make sure that we do what we can to hopefully circumvent any damaged pipes, because as things thaw is when things happen. So first step would be to turn off the water main.
That's correct. And a lot of people go, well, how will I know when my water starts coming? Well, you'll get, if there's pressure trapped in that line. And if you never get any water and you see dripping in the faucets, you can crack that main on a little bit. But it's just, you don't want to find out, because you start seeing water dripping in the ceiling where you have a lot of houses, they'll have a hose bib outside and they'll have a line coming across the ceilings and stuff. And those we found, because the air from the soffit has gone up in there, and it was designed for 14 degrees. So right. It's that, or somebody will leave their garage door open and, the water heater's in there and the lines will freeze there. So, and there's a lot of homes that have, pipes in their attics, and, they're fine until you start getting those multiple days and where we get below, down in the teens at night, and that's where we start seeing that failure. If people aren't dripping their faucets and things like that.
We had a listener call a couple of weeks ago about a line that had frozen in his attic, and he wasn't able to get the heat tape like he needed to, or his contractor needed to. Any advice for someone in that sticky situation? And we were just suggesting to put some extra insulation, even if you're rolling out bat insulation over those pipes. Any other options?
Tinning it is a real good, because if you can roll out batting insulation, or even go buy a bundle of the blown in and just cover it. If you can't reach it, just make sure it gets covered in about 6 inches of loose insulation. That is just as adequate. It's just keeping that cold air, and when we get a little bit of wind where it blows into the eaves, that will help. And there's a lot of water heaters now that are in attics, and just making sure those pipes are insulated correctly.
You also mentioned earlier that once you turn off the water main, go back in to the home, turn on all the faucets, hot and cold. And you mentioned opening all your cabinets.
Yeah, that just it helps that where there's
Where there are
small
pipes
holes
in
into
the
those things, just warming up the other end of where the pipes come out into the room, and it just helps. And it's a good idea at night to, open up those cabinets if they're on an outside wall, to just have that warm air getting towards that, because, sometimes there's only 4 inches between the outside world and those pipes. So, unfortunately, the southern homes are not built for these temperatures, and, because we don't have big basements and things like that are heated.
I tell you what, some of the northern homes aren't either. Because listen to this, Scott. Fire officials in Maryland have recently blamed 2 fires on people trying to thaw their frozen pipes.
Yes.
TV station in Baltimore reported that one fire occurred when someone tried to thaw their pipes with a blowtorch. Somebody else started a fire because they were using a heat gun and a hairdryer to thaw their pipes in a townhome. Not good, huh?
Not good. And, the best thing is to have a professional come in. And what we use is a heater, and we do not put direct. They make thawing devices
flames
that we can clamp on the pipes and thaw them. Or what we try to use is indirect heat, is we use a big heater to heat the air around the pipes and get that. It's just not a good idea to take an open flame and run up into a wall pocket and try to heat the air with a torch, or, because heat guns, they look like a hairdryer, but, they really get hot if you scorch the insulation or tar paper. A lot of older homes were built with tar paper for a vapor barrier. It just lights, and it's just, once it gets going, just with a little ember.
If you're in one of those exterior walls and you get anywhere close to the vapor barrier on the insulation.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is it's much better to thaw things out gradually rather than just try to get it done right this second, because everything that you put directly on it might not be the best of ideas as far as these heat sources.
And that's the thing. And a lot of people are impatient, and it's not an easy thing to tell people, well, you're going to have to wait.
They don't want to hear that.
They want to be able to take a shower.
Exactly. All right. Gotcha. Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining us, taking the time out of your morning to call in. And hopefully we'll get to have you on the show again real soon. Always good information.
I would enjoy that.
All righty.
Thanks, Scott.
You have a great Saturday, and stay warm.
You too.
Shane, you wanted to mention something about the tenting?
One thing Scott did mention a little bit there. He mentioned tenting of the insulation over the water pipes, and I just want to clarify that for anyone that didn't know what he was referring to. It's basically because most of the major water losses that people have called me in to put things back together on usually involved this. If you have water pipes in your attic, if the insulation is actually going over the top of them rather than under them, that way it keeps all the water pipes in the heated envelope, so to speak, and that way the pipes stay above the freezing temperature. The same thing can exist in a wall. I've been in the exterior walls. I've been in houses where when they built the house, they ran the water line through, then the people came in and put the insulation and put it on the inside of the pipe rather than the outside of the pipe, which ultimately, that water's right there for the freezing. It's on the freezing side rather than the heated side. So anytime you see a water line, whether it be in the attic or in a wall or whatever, just make sure the insulation is on the opposite side of the heated space.
Okay.
So when he mentioned tenting, that's what he was talking about. Just make sure you try to keep the pipes in the heated envelope.
Makes sense,
because that is definitely. I've been in some pretty healthy ones.
Not done right.
Easily. Especially during construction, you got different people doing different things. A lot of times, people aren't looking out for everyone else's trade; they're only looking out for their own. I mean, I've seen that a lot.
And sometimes they don't do it on purpose. They just.
That's just what they do. They're there to put the insulation in. They're not there to protect the pipes. I mean, that's, the mentality a lot of times. So you just got to keep an eye out on that.
I gotcha.
As always, we very much appreciate the plumbing expertise that Scott Smith shares with us every time he's on the show. To reach Scott and his team at All Clear Plumbing, visit them online at allclearplumbingupstate.com. They also love it when you call them on the phone. Here's how to reach them. Call 864-979-7059. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully this information will keep your pipes safe and warm during the winter. Be sure to share this podcast with others who can benefit. Also, if you have a moment, please leave us a review to let us know how we're doing. I'm Tommy Donovan with RIC Home Inspections. We'll catch you next time on the Home Pros Radio Show podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Home Pros Radio Show. Meet more Home Pros at homeprosradio.com. There, you can also catch full episodes of our show, along with additional information to ensure that your home is in perfect shape. It's the Home Pros Radio Show, brought to you by Prime Lending, home loans made simple. The Home Pros Radio Show, online at homeprosradio.com or on the radio at 94.5 WGTK, The Answer.